Now let's take a look at the service provider module. So to get here, I'm going to go to admin and service providers, and that'll bring up a list of my existing vendors or vendors that I've already invited into the system. And then I also have the ability to invite service providers right up here. So let's take a look at that first. I'll just click on the invite tab and we'll fill out this form. You will need to assign a vendor ID to each of your service providers. This is not something that has to happen at the invitation stage, but if you already have vendor IDs from your accounting team, you can go ahead and capture that at the invite level. But if you don't have the vendor ID just yet, we can always add that later. And the vendor ID is just however your accounting team codes service providers. So whatever ID number or key term or phrase that they associate with vendors, we'll just want to match that up in the EcoTrack platform so that when your vendors invoice you, the export comes across correctly. So we'll talk about that more in our accounting video, but just be aware that if you already have a vendor ID that you can assign to the service provider, great. Otherwise, you can skip that field. It is not required. But you'll input their vendor name, and so we're just going to use Gilmore's Repair Service. Contact first name is a required field, but if you don't have a good point person there, no biggie. You can just input the company name over again. The system will allow it. Then we'll input their email address and their phone number. So the three main components that I have to be able to send an invite are a company first name, email address, and phone number. And then finally our phone number. You know what? I'm going to use a different number. Okay, once you have those three main components, you'll click submit. The system's going to take a second to send this invite out. It is trying to identify if the email address or phone number that you provided is already listed somewhere in the system. If it is going to ask if you want to invite an existing service provider. So just bear with me as this page loads because it is scanning our database to see if it can connect you to an existing vendor that has already onboarded potentially for another client. If it does not recognize the email address or the phone number, you will just be redirected to your managed service provider page where you can see that their invitation was sent out. It's going to identify as a brand new invite. So that invite was generated. Now your vendor is going to have an invite sitting in their inbox. So whatever email address that you provided right here is where that invite is going to go. They can always change that later. So if the vendor comes back and says, hey, I'd actually like the email associated with our account to be XYZ, they can update that on their end. So really push them to go ahead and use that invitation that they received to register, and then they can make updates on their side. But when a brand new invitation goes out, it is going to look just like this. So if we use Ben's Tools as our example, you'll see that their username is available to you and that phone number that you have associated with their account. Then we can keep track of their progress right here. So the 4 things that they need to provide to us to set up their profile and to register their profile are their contacts, trades and regions, rates and terms, and their notification preferences. Anywhere you see green check marks, that is something that they've completed and provided to you. Anything that has a red exclamation point next to it, that is a pending item. And then right down here, if we go back to Ben real quick, you'll see NA. Think of that as no action has been taken. So this is a brand new invitation that's gone out to the vendor, and they just haven't done anything with it just yet. If we scroll over, that vendor ID that you saw available on this page, if you provide it, when you send the invite, you will see that it's automatically applied to that column. If at the time that you sent the invitation, you didn't have that vendor ID readily available, no big deal. You can always add it back in later, and I'll show you how to do that in one second. We also can see their status. This is whether or not they've accepted your invitation to join the system. So prior to tackling any of these items over here, first thing they'll need to do is just accept your invite. That is just going to communicate to us that they're willing to participate on the system and that they'll be providing this additional information to you shortly. Under service provider required documents, we can require that vendors submit certain types of documents to you, and that can be whatever you want it to be. Typically, clients do want a W-9 or a service level agreement or a COI. So whatever sort of like vendor packet you may have or vendor documents that you may need from those service providers, we can make that a part of the onboarding process. Right here you can see that we're just requiring a W-9. And it has a red X next to it, which means that they haven't submitted that just yet. If we saw a green check mark, then I'd know, okay, they've already submitted their W-9. And then finally, we have our action column. This is where we can view their details. So we can drill down and look at these different components of their profile. We can make them active or inactive. So if I inactivate this service provider, it will unrank them from my trade assignment. So just keep that in mind if this is a vendor that you've already assigned to specific trades at specific locations. If you inactivate them, it will automatically remove them from those trade assignments and they no longer will be able to receive work. And then we have an enforcement feature, which is currently and by default turned on. And enforcement just means that you're going to require that this vendor check in and check out of each site. So when they go and accept a work order, they then will have to follow a process of marking a work order en route, arrived, and then complete. So this essentially is just where you can force the vendor to provide you status updates on a work order. If that feature is turned off, it'll turn red and it will not require that they give you status updates every step of the way. They can just accept a call and then mark it as complete. They don't have to give the status update that they are en route or arrived. They still have that option, it just won't be required. So to turn that feature on and off, you just click on it. So if I click on it, it'll turn red. Enforcement's now turned off. If I wanted to turn it back on, just click on it again. Alrighty, so that's how we can kind of keep track at a quick glance of what status or process or stage of the process our service provider is in. If I wanted to drill down into their profile, you can click on their SPID number or that view details icon. Either one, it's going to take you to the service provider details page, where you can see their service provider ID number. This is a number generated by Ecotrack. Their vendor ID, if you need to input that information later, you can. We just click edit, provide that vendor ID, and then click update right down here. Under contacts, this is where you'll be able to see essentially a phone book in the event that you needed to contact a vendor for any reason. These are people that they've defined as people that you can reach out to. So here I've got an account manager, director of customer service, another account manager, and their dispatch person. Under rates and terms, this is where you can see what they're charging and what their payment terms are. And then finally under trades and regions, this is where you can see those trades and regions that they specifically support and service. If you see that something's missing here and you want to suggest that they add a trade and region, you can click edit right here, click on this add icon, and then suggest, hey, I see that you're missing these specific trades in the specific region, and make the suggestion that they add that to their profile. Okay, so this is where you can just kind of see the information that they've provided to you. Under attachments, if they've submitted that W-9, that COI, that service level agreement, you'd have access to those documents right here. And then you'll also see a bulk trade assignment feature. So of course at the location level you'll have access to a trade assignment, but bulk trade assignment is a good shortcut. If they've clearly defined their trades and regions, you'll be able to see that right here. So here are those trades that they support and service and your locations that fall within their regions. This is where you can very quickly make ranking assignment. If you click on this drop down right here, it'll show you that there are at least 2 vendors available or already assigned to this store, and that this vendor would potentially be the 3rd. You can choose what rank you want this vendor to be. So just an easy way to kind of read this of, do I want this vendor to be rank 1, rank 2, or rank 3? You can also first rank all, so if I want to make this vendor my rank 1 option for each of these locations for HVAC, I would just click first rank and that would update. But to make changes just by store, again, you'll need to click on SP rank, but then also click on this ID or this box right here. That's what's officially going to save it. Just by clicking on the ranking right here, that's not going to do anything. you'll have to click the rank, but then also click on this box right here. So that's how you can make quick bulk trade assignments per vendor. And then finally, you do have that ability to make them active or inactive from this page as well.